started with the foundation. China say building up a revolution. I say we going on in Nevada, do not in a Kingston.
Hello lovely people, welcome to Fixing Rusty Stuff, where if it ain't broken, I'll fix it till it is. I'm going to take you along on my journey of discovery. Well, I dabble in anything related to electronics, engineering and DIY. Now, for all you know, I have absolutely no knowledge, qualifications, skills or experience in any of these fields, so I would never encourage you to do anything that you see me do in these videos and take it purely for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, this is where our story begins. In the ridiculously small garden of my 2-bedroom mid-terraced house. Now, when I say it's small, it is probably the smallest back garden on my whole street. I mean, this neighbour's is bigger. And this neighbour's. In fact, all of their bloody gardens are bigger than mine. Just their gardens, mind you. Anyway, there's not much that I can do with this exceedingly tiny space. But there's one thing that I do know, and it's that is not a man cave fit for a man. In fact, it bears way more resemblance to an old woman's cave, or maybe a dog's cave. Either way, it's a knackered cave. You can see how I very carefully dismantled the sagging beauty and placed her neatly in a pile along with some other construction materials that I will use at a later date. Then, I dug this hole. Now if you're wondering if there's a method to this hole digging madness, then the answer is yes sir, yes there is. But before I go into that, I will show you the shape of my garden. As you can see, it is far from square. And for some reason, probably a very stupid one which escapes me at this exact moment, I decided to build my man cave parallel to my left hand side neighbour's fence line. This means that there are 2 annoying spaces left over at the top and at the right hand side of the shed cave. I will decide what to do with this over a glass of fine rum once the build is finished. Whatever the space is used for, I'm sure it will be distinctly pointless. Anyway, back to the hole. So, I found some plans online, link in the description of course, which provide a very basic step-by-step guide to building what they call a lean-to shed. The idea is to have the floor joists sitting on top of a layer of bricks, sitting on a concrete base, which is what I am excavating this trench for. So the first step of these plans is to pour the concrete footing. I didn't look at their measurements, but my hole is approximately 300mm deep, which will eventually contain half hardcore and type 1 and half concrete. 150mm of each for those who are as bad at maths as I am. And now, a tour of the hole. Here on the right hand side you can see one of the aforementioned annoying spaces, and it does have a matching partner at the top. The concrete post in the middle, laying flat, was dug out from the top and took quite a while to remove, let me tell you. Now, under this plank is where I keep my wife. Only kidding, it's a board to stop my neighbour inadvertently breaking his legs in my hole. And now, one final shot of my hole in all its glory and the building site that has become my backyard, and cut VT. Now you can see that the hole has progressed and I've started filling it with the 150mm of hardcore. So this is the bigger stuff, the smaller stuff will go on top, fill in the gaps and create a nice level even base to support all that lovely grey gold. That's right, I'm talking about the concrete. So I borrowed my burly cousin and my neighbour's mixer for the day and used almost a ton of ballast and 10 bags of concrete to fill up this trench. The side dimensions are about 3.2 by 3.4 metres, and once the concrete was poured we levelled it all out at the end using a good old fashioned extra long spirit level. We shuttered the sides with ply, and although the shuttering went a bit wonky under the weight of the concrete, everything should work out just beautiful if we lay the bricks straight and true. And speaking of the bricks, look what we have here. A vandal must have come in and laid them while I was out. Now I'm no brickie, but they're relatively level and they're relatively straight. I'm sure there's some battle hardened bricklayers yelling at the screen about everything I've done wrong here, but for me it's fit for purpose and it's good enough. I will of course install a damp proof layer between the bricks and the joists in another attempt to stem rot. Now the plans I found for this were all using that Stone Age unit of measurement they call imperial, and while the Yanks may love it, I prefer my millimetres and my centimetres. So instead of doing some complicated mathematical equations, I simply used these plans as a very rough guide and built a man cave to my own dimensions. You may be able to tell that these joists are 8x2s and absolute beasts. This is a perfect example of over-engineering. 6x2s would have easily sufficed, but that's just how I roll. I attached the joist to the end plates by using 3 100mm Torx head decking screws. I didn't use any hangers, and as you can see, even with my rotund booty jumping all over them, they're solid as a proverbial rock, and I ain't even braced it with the noggins yet. These joists are supported in the middle by some strategically laid bricks. Another little thing to take notice of in this image is that if you look at the bottom right hand of the base, you will notice an odd brick. This is what is known as an air brick. I installed it in order to allow ventilation underneath the shed base, which will hopefully assist in preventing rot. The noggins are all bracing the joists together nicely, and they're not moving an inch, as you can see from what I like to call the trampoline test. So, I measured 600mm from the outside edge to the centre of each joist. Now this proved to be a fatal error, as a 2.4 by 1.2 metre ply sheet actually measures 2.44 by 1.22. Someone at the yard can't get their measuring right either. Now this meant that I had to shave off a thin strip to land the ply on a joist centre. Moral of the story? Always check where the edge of your plywood will fall before laying the joists. Here we can see a beautiful still image of the insulation getting installed and my finger making a cameo. Now don't be a plum like me and make sure you order enough materials or you'll have an annoying section that's missing like this, which you'll have to go back and install later. I did say my maths was no good. Or maybe it was all that rum I'd drunk when I ordered the materials. I also installed the waterproof membrane, which is essentially just sheets of plastic to prevent water coming up through the floor. And oh look, my finger's made another appearance. It must be after YouTube fame and fortune. Now, as you can see, we have an entirely unfinished shed floor base. Although we have all the elements there, there's just not enough of them. That's right, I made the same error when ordering the ply. Definitely not the best materials order I've ever made. The only thing I had enough of was joist nails and waterproof membrane. So, this brings us to the end of our first adventure. You guys ain't stupid, you get the picture. To make the shed floor base, you pour the concrete, lay the bricks, fix the joists, cram the insulation in, staple your waterproof membrane on top, and lastly, the plywood is screwed on top to finish it off. What could be simpler? It shouldn't take longer than 2 flicks of a gnat's b****. In the next video, you will see that the shed floor is finished after the new ply was ordered, and we will start to erect the structure of the shed. If you like that video, hammer the like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your dad, and stay tuned for the next instalment of Fixing Rusty Stuff.